Hello, everyone. How we doing? This is Chanan, and I have with us Joey Lott. The two of us are coming at you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, this is our first Facebook Live, and it's a little got some technical stuff going on, but we're really happy to be here with you today. And today we're going to talk about spiritual practice and how typical spiritual practices, can actually become obstacles to full awakening.
Yeah,
And
and we're going to look at how these peak experiences and spiritual practices are obstacles, right? These experiences that we get are temporary experiences, right, Joey?
yep,
And we think that that's what we want to live, right? And it makes sense, right? The struggling in life, the feeling that's uncomfortable, any kind of suffering, right? Let's just take a quick look at what suffering is, shall we?
yeah,
You know, when we refer to suffering, well, there could be different scales of suffering, right? There could be physical bodily pain. There could be emotional suffering. But if we take a look at the deep root of suffering, we have to take a look at kind of like what Buddha said about life, right? That desire, he said life is suffering. Why? Because desire, everything that's looking for something somewhere else that's going to fulfill you, is temporary. So the futility of that temporary achievement, that temporary accomplishment, that temporary love, right? So in the material world, we're looking for that experience of fulfillment and love and connection in material things, right? The entire world, if you feel like the world's against you sometimes, you're probably right, because the entire world is doing what? It's setting a trance to tell you that your life will be whole and complete when you do this and have this, then you'll be happy. When you do this, then you have this, then you'll be at peace. So the entire world is operating this do, have, be paradigm. And we'll talk about that more in the masterclass coming up. By the way, if you want to sign up for the masterclass, Awakening to Your True-OneSelf, with myself, Chanan, and Joey Lott, it's going to be a great class. We're going to deep dive into some of this and really show you access points, a process that continues to work for people.
yep.
You can type in the word class below, CLASS, and you'll be registered for that class. If you'd like to be registered, type in the word class, CLASS. All right. So getting back to it, in the physical world, right? So what are we told? We're told if you do this, you'll have a girlfriend. If you act that way, you'll have the girlfriend and you'll be loved, right? If you do this, you'll have the right career and then you'll be financially successful, which will give you happiness.
Yep.
Right? So everything's operating this do, have, be paradigm. And awakening and discovering true freedom
Yep.
is found actually in the opposite. It's be first. Okay, so what we're going to do in this show, we're going to be coming at you every day around 11 o'clock live, and maybe some more. We're going to get on here as much as we possibly can to support people, because Access Points works, and we really want you to understand the clarity of what we're talking about. So we're going to take a look at some of the myths, obstacles, and blockages that keep us from actually living an awake life. Because for us, it's not enough just to awaken or to teach you a meditation that will give you a temporary experience, but to actually be in life meditating, to actually be in the deepest part of the challengings of your life, and to live an awakeness of oneness. So if we go ahead and we take a look at what we're posing here, we're saying that that's in the material world. So when we start to practice spiritual practices, or we have an experience that is spiritual, we start to seek that experience, try to maintain it, try to get to it. And it's actually just like the seeking in material world of things that gives us temporary fulfillment. Well, so too are your past spiritual experiences. Joey?
I'm just letting you know that we're having a few technical challenges here, so I'm going to be trying to sort that out. But meanwhile, I also wanted to throw in that, for a lot of people who and just on that note, if we haven't connected it up yet for typing in class, so just so people are aware, anybody who's watching live, we're just having a little technical difficulty with
It's okay.
that.
If you type in class and it doesn't work, we'll check it
Yeah,
out.
we'll follow up. But the thing here is to really understand is, a lot of people come to me and they say nothing's working anymore. Like I thought I was successful. I thought I was achieving things. I thought I was getting somewhere with my spiritual practices, with my self-help stuff, with my career, with all the therapy, all the stuff that I was doing. and nothing's working. And now I'm feeling really desperate. And it so often just comes out of my mouth automatically. I just say, awesome. And then I have to say, wait a second, but let me provide some context for why I would say awesome. Because from my perspective, yeah, that's a horrible thing to be going through. And yet it's really it's like when the opening is there, the opportunity to finally fall into the realization of who you really are, that you don't need any of that stuff, that all that stuff is actually in the way, because your whole life you've been operating out of this separation paradigm. And now for the first time, you're really waking up and realizing, wow, none of that stuff is actually going to satisfy me. It doesn't matter how much money I have. It doesn't matter how many peak experiences I have. It doesn't matter how many retreats I go on. It doesn't matter how enlightened I think I am, right? What really matters is moment to moment, am I living the reality of true and lasting peace? And if you can't say absolutely yes to that, then waking up in this way, even though it can be painful and confusing, is great news, because that means, oh, finally, there's a possibility of real relief. You don't have to carry that stuff around and have that burden of all the stuff you have to do to fix yourself and get somewhere and achieve all these things, because the real invitation, the real opportunity is so completely simple. You know, it's simpler than anything you could think about, anything you could imagine, because it's the reality of who you are. And that's always available. That's why we call it access points. That's why we call it accessing, because it's not about achieving some state. It's not in the future at all. It's presently, right now, to actually just recognize the truth of who you are, which is this immense peace and freedom that's always here.
Without question. And I think it would be do justice for everybody who's here, whether you're a person who's just starting on the spiritual path, okay? With what we want to really share with you in the masterclass and what we want to share with you here is to recognize that you don't need to go through 10 years of suffering of trying to figure out how to find freedom in your life.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have been on the spiritual path, if you tell the truth, every experience you've gotten, every realization, it came and it went. So we see that we're still seeking in temporary, looking for fulfillment.
Yeah.
So all of those are concepts and ideas. So when Joey's saying the separation paradigm, when we're identified with our mind, we believe ourselves to be a separate me. In access points, we call this the operating system of the mind. And the mind's job is to maintain separation, maintain the perceptual field, right? So its job is to keep you identified in the mind, to keep you running away from experiences you think you don't want here and running to what you think a better experience is going to be somewhere else in some future. So let's take a look at how your mind co-ops that. Your mind spirals back, has an experience, which is a good one. It now labels that, dissects it apart, understands it, puts it into a compartment, and it now can reference it. Instead of having an authentic, direct experience of this moment, the mind is always one step out of the moment. So it now says, I know this experience, this spiritual experience, even if that experience is a subtlety of being or being in the moment. Often being in the moment, the mind is working on a mindfulness technique or an Eckhart Tolle technique and judging itself. Am I doing it right? You're doing it wrong. Why aren't you more in the moment? Because that's still doing something to have something, to be something. Here's a clearest example of that, I think, Joey, is that when people sit to meditate in a technique, what are we doing? You're sitting and you start your technique. So now you're doing. And what are you doing? You're doing something to have what? Well, to get to that nice feeling that comes sometimes in meditation.
Yep.
Right? So you can be happy and be free. So even if you have that moment in meditation, you go back into life. Or even if you have that moment in retreat, you go back into life. And what usually happens? The challenges and the mind smack you back. So we feel like this experience of peace is something that comes and goes. But the point we'll make clearly to you in the masterclass is that oneness is really always here. And we'll guide you through this past to now moment exercise. You can clearly see that. Right? So in a moment of orgasm, in a moment of nature, you experience oneness. So for those of you beginning on this path, meditation doesn't have to be sitting, doing something to have something. You don't have to sit for 30 minutes to an hour a day. You don't have to put on headphones to experience meditation. Meditation and awakening, to clarify that, and we'll be saying that a lot here, are actually one and the same. And we've worked with countless people who've been meditating for 10, 20, 30 years, and they still aren't there, but they really are there.
Yeah.
That's the clearest thing to make sure we all hear that you are here. And that that's not enough for the mind, that you being, that you exist. When your attention shifts out of your mind and your attention rests in that being, you'll find the expansiveness, the limitlessness, and the beauty of who you really are has always been here, always supporting you. So what we really say, what meditation really is, what accessing oneness and awakening really are, is shifting your attention out of your mind. When your attention is in your mind, you're in the separate me. We'll go into that separate me more in the masterclass and maybe in a future topic here. But that separate me has to always hold everything together. It's in anxiety. So without having to fix any of that or change that, without getting rid of thoughts, without getting rid of the mind, without running from emotions or being run by them, we can finally choose to really be here, not by trying to be here. So a great example of that is you sit down, like I said, right, in that technique, and then you do the technique to have that feeling. So it's operating in do, have, be. And how does the mind co-opt that? Well, the mind thinks that you have to do this to have this, to be this. And then all of a sudden meditation is not going good and you're getting ugly feelings. And so then you're pushing those away and you're trying to sit harder to, so people are like this and focusing and concentrating and all this stuff for 10, 20, 30 years. And guess what? The news is out. The old ways don't lead to enlightenment. They just don't.
That's right. And by the way, even if you have consistently very positive experiences with meditation or spiritual practice, the point remains the same, actually, which is, I used to practice TM, and I could fairly reliably enter a blissful state by practicing TM. The problem is that then, of course, it gets co-opted because then the deal is, well, I believe that I have to sit and do this thing for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours in order to get that experience, and that I need that experience. And then the rest of my life is standing in stark contrast with that, because the rest of my life, it sucks compared to that. So then I'm on this wheel of suffering. I have to do this thing for 4 hours to get this experience so that then I can feel like I'm okay. But then guess what? I have to go back into my life and then I'm not okay. So then I have to go back and do the same thing again. And I'm just on this vicious cycle. That's suffering. I did that for many years. And I knew, as many people know, whether they consider themselves to be successful with the practice or unsuccessful, the result is kind of the same. It's dissatisfaction, because it can't give you what you most deeply long for, which is just to be yourself fully without having to get to some other experience, to really be able to receive your experience as it's happening moment to moment and receive the reality of the bliss of that, rather than the idea of bliss, which is a state that might be entered by doing some practice. It's a totally different ball game, and it's the difference between real peace or just the idea of peace and chasing after that, which is suffering. And that can go on for a long time until you're finally willing to hear and receive, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. Wow. Okay. That's real peace.
That's right. And the co-opting of the mind will take all your realizations, everything you experience. I want to be clear. We're not saying that everything you've done in the past didn't serve you. It served you to some point. And then you got to rip that Band-Aid off. And if the wound is still there, you got to tell the truth that your mind has co-opted these practices, these realizations, these understandings, and it's placating the idea of it into some future that it doesn't exist anyhow.
Yeah.
So how do we stop? By letting go of everything and being raw, fresh, vulnerable here, to directly shift out our mind and discover awareness and to build this muscle of shifting. So what we see is missing out in the world is real support in doing it out in life. So you don't come to a meeting, you don't go do a practice for 30 minutes, you go into a yoga class, and you go back into life. So what has to happen is we're interested in your awakening in life. Yeah. And we've developed a process that works over and over again for everyone. Whether you're not awake, and what we say awake, if you're a beginner, that we just mean awake as in you start to experience the inner peace of meditation and oneness in your daily life. And imagine if you're experiencing that 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, 20 times,
by the way,
30
I
times a day.
You say it like it's just that. I mean, that's what most people spend their whole lives trying to get to and fail because nobody has this information. And that's why we're so passionate about getting this
Yeah.
information to people, because when you
Yeah.
have the information and you have the guidance and then you put it into practice in your life, you're guaranteed results. It's like, that's the amazing thing, is this has all been so mystified for so long, and most people think it's just actually kind of myth, like we don't
Totally.
even believe that's possible. But we're saying, no, wait, that's actually possible. It's possible for you, and we have a process that totally demystifies it and makes it available to everybody. and
That's
and
right.
and that's what we all need. Just imagine a world where everybody, and forget about everybody, what if just 10% of the population, what if just 5% of the population was walking around really awake to who they are and living from that clarity? That's a totally different world, and that's what we're about. That's what we're really
That,
interested
that's really like, I think, next time we'll start from here, saying that, Joey and I have a very clear mission, and it's a tremendous one. That's to help 2 million people discover awakening, to really awaken. And if you're already awake and you're like, well, I'm already awake. Well, this process we're done with a lot of people who are very much awake, but they've been avoiding other things that aren't working, and they're not really awake everywhere. You can ask yourself, what percentage are you actually experiencing oneness during the day, or are you still in your mind?
in. Yeah.
So this process helps you stabilize an awakening.
Mhm.
If you're someone starting out, then this process helps you discover. So like I was saying, if it's done over and over and over and over and over again, what starts to happen? The shift becomes complete, and then you stabilize an awakening. And really the juiciest thing of it all is that's just the beginning. Awakening is only the beginning. You see, just living in awake and, hey, I'm awake, meaning that you're there, is already the mind co-opting it, saying you're someplace.
Yeah.
But to really live on the edge of creation is to live not from a survival mind at all, but from your soul and into this greatest expression of who you are. And that's fresh and new on the edge of trusting being. So
and
we
and
shift to being, we live from there.
and I think this is such an important thing, and it's like not a lot of people acknowledge this, but I think it's really important to say, because this is a big hang up, and this could be a whole other topic for a whole other conversation, but I'll just touch on it for a moment, which is that if you have believed, as most people have, that spiritual awakening is really just some nice warm fuzzy feeling that you get to maintain forever, that's not it, and that actually is suffering. You see, because then you can see this clearly. You realize that if true freedom allows everything. Everything is welcome in true freedom. If you're saying that freedom is only the freedom to experience this small subset of experience over here, but everything else has to be kept away, that
That's
doesn't
right.
sound like freedom to me. And so
That's right.
what we're really saying, what Hanan just said about that, you're living on the edge. Most of our lives and most spiritual practices, most self-help practices, they're actually just designed to try to maintain this special me, to make it better, to make it feel safer, more secure. And it never can succeed in that. So the real invitation here is to actually discover directly for yourself that living on the edge, to be totally raw, totally bare, totally exposed, that's what you really want.
That's freedom, man. That's total
Yeah.
freedom. And it might not be comfortable, but then it becomes comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So the body, mind's responses and reactions that we're buying into, that create the anxiety, that create the stress, the depression, when they're allowed and we're not run from them, guess what happens? We're no longer identified as the story, but yet we can include the story.
Yeah.
See, so often the getting rid of the ego, getting rid of the human, even if you already discovered some freedom and awakening, there hasn't been a true inclusion of the human being that you are, that is arising here. The conversation of, well, you're here, you're not here, and all these sometimes invite us. It's all happening in the separation paradigm, back in the mind.
Yeah.
Direct experience is what we're looking for you. And access points, we create a process where you go into life with an access point that shifts you out of your mind.
Yeah.
And as I said over and over again, so that's what you're experiencing. Meditation starts to occur all the time.
Yeah.
And that's,
And
I
what's
just want to
amazing,
go ahead.
well, I just want to say what's amazing about this also is that this is really inclusive. It's like everything that's come before that was operating in the separation paradigm, we don't have to get rid of that. It's just that by accessing, you gain access to the clarity that allows everything to be used intelligently. And so
That's
all
right.
of those old things, like I don't practice TM. I'll just be honest about that. I don't have any desire presently to practice TM, but there are many things that I've learned in the past, many practices and things that I've learned that now can actually be used in service of
Yes.
that clarity,
Yes.
by that clarity. And so
Yeah.
everything that's happened in the past, all the stuff you've learned, everything that you've done, when you're willing to set it down and stop trying to use it to protect yourself, and you access clarity directly, then those things can start to be used without you using them. They can start to be used in service of oneness to help awaken the world. It's a
Yes.
beautiful thing.
And that's the thing. So we're asking you to join this movement of awakening, right? You know, we're up to helping 2 million people awaken in the next 3 years. There's a tipping point where enough people will become aware, just like when slavery ended. Enough people, whether they agree with it or not, agree that that just can't be anymore. So I want you to look at the world out there. There's a lot of darkness going on in the world right now. And they say transform yourself to transform the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to take responsibility for your awakening and truly living an awake life. Because we see that, you know, the people that want peace are against the people that want war. In the separation paradigm, the me story rules all. The number one religion is me. And the possibility for true transformation, because Joey and I both have children. Any of you have children out there? Then you can feel the grounded connectivity to earth and to everything even more. So the responsibility and this call for like world peace, it's in all of us. Why is that there? So we're posing to you that what meditation really is shifting out of your mind and developing this muscle to shift and to live from being, from your soul. And in that, the holding on to emotions or the suffering is released. And everything's allowed here and dissolves. Everything becomes an indicator and pointer, a collaborator to your greater freedom. And we're inviting to recognize that your absolute awakening is possible and that it's necessary if there's truly going to be a world transformation. It will become from a shift of consciousness. So we want to invite you to the next upcoming masterclass. Even if it's not working now, it will work for everyone, whether you're here live or later. So you put the word class in and we'll check it out for people to make sure you get registered. You'll actually be registered by going to class, CLASS.
Yeah, in the comments below. You can leave
in the comments below, put the word class, CLASS, and you'll be registered and you will get information on what time it is, the link to everything, okay? We're going to really break down for you the process of coming from suffering into awakening and then into really ascending into the greatest expression of you, because awakening is really just the start. We'll show you how it's really clear to shift out of your mind and what accessing is. And we'll also share with you some other people who have had some phenomenal results with access points. All right. So the co-opting mind is always going to spiral back and take every realization, everything you've ever learned, everything you've ever practiced, and tell you it thinks it knows what it is, the enlightened ego. And it's going to slightly make you think you know more than you know, back into the mind and identification. And the possibility is actually letting this computer be what it is, not trying to get rid of or change it, but actually living from being, as we see the functionality of the beauty of the computer, the beauty of creation and life, and receiving our own breath, receiving life. All right. For a moment before we leave, I'd love you to just take a breath with me if you could. No special breathing practice here. Just taking a breath in through your nose, feeling the breath going in and out over your lips as you breathe out. Really take a moment and just check this out. Recognize what the mind has to say about this. You let that come and go like traffic. And again, noticing another breath in and one out. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Your mind will have a mental answer. Do you have to do anything to breathe? So your mind says no or yeah. And just check it out with your own attention, with your own curiosity. Is breath occurring or do you have to do breathing? Great. And what if you just notice that that's occurring? It keeps coming to you. You can receive that. What happens if you lived in the receiving of life and all the surface things no longer ran you? All right. Look forward to seeing you guys in the masterclass. We'll be on again live tomorrow. If you like this, please share. If you have any questions, you can send that. You can put them in the comments here. We will get back to comments. You have the two of us. I've been living. I first awakened in, I think, 23 years ago. I've been sharing with people, helping guide their awakening for over 18 years now. Joey, but you've been sharing directly with people
I've been sharing this for about 6 years, coaching people through this, and I'm super excited about access points. I've never seen anything like it, so I would love for everybody to come join us for the masterclass. We're gonna share. I mean, if you love this, you're gonna love the masterclass even more. you know, a lot of great content. And we're also going to share with you how you can get, you can actually work directly with us, you know, and that's a really powerful process. And so hope to see you there. Type class.
All right. Lots of love, everybody. Hope to see you in the masterclass. Put the word class below if you'd like to sign up, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
All right, Joey. See you later. Bye.